So last week, Karoli asserted that Jim Jordan will never be Speaker of the House. And my lesson from this is that one should never bet against Karoli. Welcome to MOMocrats MOMochat, part of the DemCast family of podcasts. I'm Donna Schwartz Mills with Karoli from crooksandliars.com. Eliza Worthington is off today. And there were moments during the week, Karoli, where I wasn't sure you were going to be right because it looked, yesterday when they floated the idea of letting McHenry be and have expanded powers as Speaker pro tem for 3 months while Jordan continued to bully them all, I'm going, oh my God, he's going to wear them down, you know?
Yeah, no,
He's going to be the de facto leader for 3 months, like a shadow leader, you know?
I just figured it would go the other way. So that's interesting about the shadow leader. I hadn't actually thought of it in those terms, and I kind of felt like I liked McHenry in that role for, in the temporary role, because he's not a wingnut, and he
Right.
would get legislation moved, which isn't happening right now. But there was a lot of pushback from Democrats about it too. Democrats are like, it's a terrible idea, don't do it. And in thinking about it, I have a theory about why they were doing that. That really doesn't have that much to do with McHenry or expanded role. I think they're trying to push the Biden district Republicans into switching parties, because
Wouldn't that be nice?
well, so on a different podcast today, I basically used the same theory, and here's my thinking on that. These guys are in Biden districts, right? And the circumstances being what they are, the Republican nominee may well be in jail by the time that
We'll talk about that
that the
too.
elections roll around, right? And so and Biden is going to win. I mean, I believe that. I'm not making predictions here. I'm just saying, in my heart of hearts, I believe that Biden will win, because he's the right person to have at this time, and the majority of this country is not full of wingnuts. So I think that'll happen, right? And so if these guys are smart, what they're going to do is they should leverage their power, which they have maximum power right now with Democrats, not with Republicans, but they do with Democrats. So they should leverage their power and say, I want a committee, or I want a guarantee that the DCCC is going to back our, back re-election, or whatever it is that they want, and see if they'll get it. And if they do, then they change parties, then Democrats are in the majority and they get shit done, because that's what Democrats do. They get shit done.
Right. Well, that's like my dream scenario, but I don't give it a lot of voice because it seems so far-fetched just because of what the Republican brand has been.
It does, but again, these are. I'm thinking now about the New Yorkers, not so much
The New Yorkers.
like the California Republicans should consider it too, but they won't.
No,
but I'm thinking about the New Yorkers,
because I live in one of those districts, which was a double-digit Biden district that got won by a so-called moderate Republican, and
who's not at all moderate.
No, he's a total Trumpy. He just talks a good game,
Right.
And it's the same thing. Valadao, also in California, did not switch his vote.
And Valadao ought to, because he barely won, and he lost.
Well, so did Garcia barely win.
Right.
It was just a couple of hundred votes.
Right. So, but I think New Yorkers, honestly, I think New York Republicans tend to be more like, yeah, we can work with the Democrats, whatever, right? They're not as nutty as the California Republicans are. Yeah.
you heard it here.
Yeah. But I mean, you're right. It is definitely a far-fetched scenario, but right now what's happening is Republicans are guaranteeing that they're going to lose the House for not just a cycle or 2 cycles. They're guaranteeing that they're going to lose the House for a generation. That we're going to go back to the days of Tip O'Neill. Biden's going to have a big old majority in the House for his second term.
Even with the
And
gerrymandered districts?
well, even with the gerrymandered districts, assuming that some of those, like Alabama, now has a second majority Black district. So, we don't know if North Carolina is going to go in that direction or not. But I do believe that ordinary people who elect their politicians to go do stuff,
Want to
are
see them
not
do stuff, right?
right. And they don't want to see him sit around and have a zillion votes for speaker, because Matt Gaetz is a bomb thrower who, basically is also a troll, and just, yeah. So I just think that this is something that they're going to pay a price for, what's
I
happening right now.
certainly hope so.
Yeah, I do
I mean,
too.
things were bad under Kevin, but at
Mhm.
least in the end, he was trying to get stuff done.
No,
You know,
he did the right thing. He
he
got the
did the
debt
right
ceiling
thing. He got
raised.
punished for that. But
Right.
then when you see, I mean, his nominating speech today for Jordan,
I
uh,
couldn't believe it.
it's like,
I
oh
couldn't
my
believe
God,
it.
I'm so glad we're rid of him.
The ultimate humiliation is Kevin McCarthy, ex-speaker, having to endorse Jim Jordan. I will say that Jim Jordan stuck with McCarthy through all
Mhm.
of those votes, and he definitely did nominate him and everything. But I mean, come on, that would just be humiliating, no matter what. Yeah,
When he described him as a man who is a great legislator and will work across the aisle, and the laughter that
I know.
engendered.
Oh, I know. It was hilarious. It was that, and then the quoting the new members. He listens to us and blah blah blah.
And this after we all know, we've seen releases of the bullying messages that the people who voted against him received. The text messages to Don Bacon's wife, and, the death threats, and
Yeah, I know.
the Hannity calls, and
I mean, the threats have been the worst part of this.
yeah,
The thuggery that is
yeah,
associated now with Republicans is, and I mean, I've heard of
terrible.
thuggery in the past, but now it's rampant. So the thuggery has always been there, but it just seems more prevalent now. And I think I mean, when you have Sean Hannity literally, and his producer literally calling up people,
Yeah,
or texting them and saying, or emailing them, tell us why you're not voting for Jim Jordan. And that's like the most powerful news organization for conservatives.
news,
That's a
news,
message.
news.
Yeah, news in quotes, right? That's a message.
Yeah,
And I actually admired the people who said, threaten
yes,
away, do all the threats you want, I'm not changing
yeah,
my mind.
yeah,
I mean, I
no,
thought they stood up and were right. Now, Don Bacon basically said, I'm not going to vote for an election denier.
yeah.
And
They
I
have
think they're,
earned some respect,
yeah,
just as Liz Cheney, whose position
right.
on just about every issue is horrendous,
Hmm.
earned my respect
Hmm.
by
Yeah,
being on the January 6th committee,
right.
telling the
Same.
truth.
Yeah.
And Don Bacon and the rest of the holdouts also have earned some respect.
Yep. Agreed. So, and I don't quite understand this, but they said they were going to stagger their votes, their no votes against him over the votes, so that there would
Right.
be more and more every time.
And that's
I
what
don't
happened.
know. And that is what happened.
That is what
Yeah.
happened this
And
morning. He lost 25 votes. And
yep.
then in their secret meeting,
Hmm.
where they were able to cast votes by secret ballot, he lost 112.
Right. Right. So he's done. The
Yes,
title of my post on him is Stick a Fork in Jim Jordan. He's done.
he's done.
So he's done. And now there's, I guess, I guess Jody Arrington, who's a wingnut that extraordinaire, by the way, he's as bad as Jordan, if not worse, is thinking about throwing his hat in the ring. And then this guy named Kevin Hearn, who's only been there since 2018 and basically ran a bunch of McDonald's franchises in Oklahoma.
Yeah, great.
Before that,
yeah,
is also tossing his hat in the ring. And all I can say is that running McDonald's franchises is not going to help on this. It's just not.
No, I mean,
So,
does anyone in their caucus have the abilities of a Pelosi? I don't think so.
no. Honestly, the
People
one
do.
that came the closest was McCarthy because he has the institutional knowledge. I mean, he
Right.
came in with Paul Ryan and Eric Cantor,
Yeah.
right, and everything. So he has that knowledge of time. I'm not saying he was a good speaker. He did, however, manage to get the stuff done that needed to be done. What worries me about anybody else, and I was just talking about this on a different podcast, is that there's nobody in there who really has the ability on the Republican side.
No.
Like, I don't see an end to this. I really don't.
There hasn't been. You look at the last speakers going all the way to Gingrich.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Hastert had some ability, but
yes, the child molester who could run Congress. Great.
right. Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, Newt Gingrich is where this all begins for the Republican Party in terms of the House. Before anybody jumps on me and says, no, it goes way back further than that. I know it does. But when it comes to the House, it was really Newt.
Of being uncompromising, of being completely uncompromising began with Newt.
Right.
And that's where I look at it too.
Yeah. And not just uncompromising, but horrible to people. Like, I mean, the thing that just absolutely turned me off to Newt Gingrich and Republicans forever, and I was pretty turned off to him before that, but that the rudeness and the ugliness that Newt embodied and spewed all the time was like something that I hadn't seen before, honestly.
No, it was just downright nasty.
Yeah.
And before that, even if they didn't like each other, they were at least cordial in public to one another.
Right. They were polite.
Yeah.
Or something, and now it's not that at all. It's just, and yesterday, Matt Gaetz, they got cornered by Manu Raju.
Mm-hmm.
We have this clip on the site if you want to check it out. But, and Manu Raju basically said, how do you feel about this based on, on what's going on, the fact that, you're stuck now. And Matt Gaetz is like, well, we're breaking government. We're doing it. He was like really happy about that.
Yeah.
The lobbyists are not happy. And I'm thinking to myself, I ain't nobody happy, buddy. I mean, it's not just lobbyists who aren't happy. Nobody's happy. We have a crisis in Israel. We have a war in Ukraine. I mean, there a war in Israel, a war in Ukraine, but a humanitarian crisis unfolding and where is Congress? They're navel gazing and, involved in a circle jerk. And it's just beyond comprehension. All of it.
That faction of Congress ran for office to break it.
Right.
It
and
was
my
the
theory
equivalent of putting Betsy DeVos in charge of education and Ryan Zinke in charge of the environment.
Yes, exactly. And my theory has been that the reason that Jim Jordan has insisted on having vote after vote after vote is because it is a de facto shutdown.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as the House can't do anything, the government's not functioning, and that is what they want.
Yeah.
So
good.
And I'm not sure how it gets any better, by the way.
Well, unless someone makes a deal with the Democrats, which brings your scenario back in.
Right. I mean, because anybody who's moderate enough, like McHenry, for example, I mean, I thought to myself, why didn't they just nominate McHenry for speaker? Right? If he's good enough for interim speaker, why isn't he good enough for speaker?
And that's what he said. That's why he objected to the idea of just giving him expanded powers.
Right. he objected to that, and the reason they won't is because he's knows how to get shit done,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
he's not an election denier. He voted for the CR. He voted for the debt ceiling deal. He helped shepherd those things through. That's obviously he wants to get stuff done.
Well, I mean, if you can have all of these people who are elected Democrats switch parties after the fact. I mean, I still can't believe that Jeff Van Drew was first elected as a Democrat because he's as wingnutty as the rest of them. You know, there's no
Well,
evidence
and that
he was ever a Democrat when you look at his votes and what he says.
Well, yeah, and they ran as Democrats because that's how they were going to get elected. They weren't going to get elected as Republicans. And I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
That idea goes both ways,
Yeah.
right? These guys
Yeah.
are not going to go back and get elected as Republicans. They're just not
And
in an election year.
and while you and I may not agree with conservative Democrats, we're happy to have them when it comes to important votes.
And we're happy to have the majority,
Yeah.
which means that we get to set the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll take it. I mean, Nancy Pelosi had the same margin,
Yeah. She's
and
not
she had to shepherd the liberal Democrats and the conservative Democrats and
Mhm.
get enough in for both of them, to get them to vote for it.
Yeah.
Also, she
And
could count votes.
I was going to say that one quote where they're asking her about Jim Jordan goes, well, they're working on their math.
She's so funny. Oh, I love her.
And she's been there to be a consultant.
Right.
Hakeem Jeffries has his own talents, and
Hmm.
she is there in his corner if he needs support.
Right. Well, I think his communication skills are absolutely stellar. I mean, in that regard, he runs circles around her, I
Well,
think.
but the whole yeah, he does. But the
Hmm.
whole leadership, I mean, Pete Aguilar's nomination speeches this week, I was like,
Yeah, they
"Oh,
were great.
he he's actually, because I didn't know much about him except that he's part of leadership.
Right.
And
Yeah,
his
no, he
speeches
was
were
great.
very good.
Hmm. Yeah, they were great. And I loved that every time he gave the speech, he invited them to come vote with the Democrats. And
Yes.
the invitation got stronger and stronger with every single speech. It's great. So the House is in disarray, because Republicans are in disarray.
Yes, unlike that, what was it, a CNN chyron that said that the
Oh my
Dems
God.
I
What
mean,
was wrong with them?
what
I can't even understand what that was about.
I
I
don't
have
either
no
because
idea.
the Dems have been completely in lockstep on these votes.
I know.
No
I know.
defections.
So yeah, no, they've been. I don't know what the division that they're talking about is. Maybe it's something to do with Rashida Tlaib, which we can talk about if we must. But I just say that I don't like her what she's doing right now.
Right.
And I mean, maybe they can do that, but no, Democrats have been united on all of this, and Republicans are the ones who are divided, and
Yeah.
really divided in a bad way. And so you would expect that the media would be reporting it that way, right? I mean, this isn't a both sides thing. This is Republicans not being able to agree with Republicans.
Yeah.
Democrats don't have any say in this matter.
Right.
They really don't, which is why,
It's
of
like
course.
Kevin McCarthy blaming the whole situation
But
on the
did you
Democrats.
notice today that Kevin McCarthy did not do that? He
Mhm.
did in his nominating speech, or afterwards when he was interviewed after the vote failed by CNN. He basically said Republicans are in a bad way. He didn't say word one about Democrats. But yeah, media is the one I'm talking about here. Andrew Mitchell earlier this week sat with, I think it was Katie Tur, and said, that Democrats didn't vote for McCarthy, and that's the problem. And then Kristen Welker did the same thing on NBC. It's like, what is the matter with you people? Go back and look at history. No opposing party ever elects the majority party speaker. It doesn't work that way. It never has. Why do you think Democrats should come and bail them out? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, there is a lot of punditry that seems to think that there should be crossovers like that where none existed. And this is kind of my segue into the Middle East, Rashida Tlaib
Okay.
stuff, because of, the people who seem to think that Israelis should not be trying to retaliate at all against the people who massacred
Right.
their people. And that is not to say that there aren't problems with the Israeli government. I have never been a supporter of Netanyahu. I don't support those policies. I've been decrying the Likud party's policies since Begin first started building settlements in Arab land. When that happened, and we're going back over 40 years, it's like, this is a bad idea and will not end well. And they just kept doing it,
Right.
And, it is miserable to think about innocents being killed in a war. But at the same time, Israel has a right to defend itself against people who want to wipe them off the face of the earth.
Right. And let's also acknowledge the fact that Hamas uses innocent people as human shields.
Yes.
Which is evil.
Yes.
And shouldn't dictate why Israel doesn't retaliate, right? I mean, the fact that they use that would be caving to the barbarism of that.
Yeah.
And that Hezbollah, and now, there's some Syrian involvement, and I mean, there's a lot of, in the Muslim world, agitation right
Yes.
now. And
there's so much. The fog of war thing is a normal thing to happen. But then you've got this weaponized misinformation networks that are supercharged on social media.
Shit.
And, what happened this week at the hospital, I mean, my first reaction is, if Israel bombed a hospital like that on purpose, it's tactically a bad idea because it's just going to ignite things even worse, which is what happened. And there have been so many takes on it. The IDF says it wasn't them. The US government says we think it wasn't them. The Palestinian authorities are saying, but it was Israel. People pointing out that Israel has done things in the past, and then it came out later that they did do it after they denied it. All of these things can be true at once.
They can, but I mean, I guess that's the point is, and where my disappointment was that Hamas basically comes out and says Israel bombed our hospispital,
and then
right? And then it was reported by legitimate mainstream news without any critical thought about where that source was. Like, should we be believing Hamas? Should we maybe take
Should we take a step back and try to and just say this has to be verified where it came from? All they know is that the explosion happened,
right?
But nobody
and
had
that's what they should have said.
About the source,
Right. They should have said.
And to quote the health administration, but that's Hamas. You're quoting Hamas,
right?
You know
Exactly.
And they don't say it. They didn't say it.
Right. I know. They made it sound like it was legit. That's what I'm saying. It was, and it literally took Israel sending people out to the cable channels and scolding them for that, right? I mean, basically saying, you people took Hamas's word for it without verifying it yourself, without checking it, without any knowledge that what they said was true. And through basically now they've now created the narrative that
Yeah,
they wanted to create, and you helped them do it.
yeah.
And all you had to do was be a little bit more critical and be a little bit
Mhm.
more careful about verifying it. And this is what happens all the time in all kinds of different contexts. How many times have we heard a report where Republicans say X, Y, and Z,
Yes,
right? And that becomes the narrative, even though it's untrue.
right.
It's the same dynamic. It's like you have to stop being stenographers in the media, in the press. You have to.
In the
You
meantime,
have
the
to stop
damage
it.
is done.
Yeah,
The damage is done. And
right.
it's
So now we have all these protests.
spinning
We
out of
have
control.
protests there. We have protests here. We have, protests everywhere. And and it just muddies the water. It makes it harder to discern what needs to
Yeah,
happen. So for me, uh, I think I'm in the same place as I was last week, where I'm saying, yes, Israel has the right to retaliate, and also not all Palestinians are Hamas.
right.
So we need to sort that out somehow. And I thought Biden did a really good job on his visit with Bibi, where
Yes.
he, said basically that, and then warned that we've made the mistake of letting rage overtake reason after 9/11, and don't make that mistake again. I think that was an implicit warning. And I know some people who needed to hear that,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah.
who needed to step back and say, okay, right, you're right about that.
And Biden has been absolutely masterful
He has.
in these tricky balancing acts, these tricky tightropes in foreign relations.
Yep.
At the same time, the Arab street only hears and sees that the US is giving Israel arms, and they don't care that we're trying to get humanitarian aid to them. I mean, if Egypt doesn't open the gate,
Yeah,
how
they
does it
said they
get?
would. I don't understand why they haven't.
Well, I saw a report that part of the issue is that nobody can verify that Hamas won't take the aid.
That's a
And that's a
really
huge issue.
huge
It's
reason.
legitimate because they've done it in the past.
Yes, they have. I mean, I can remember, gosh, that was back in maybe 2009 or whatever, when there was a blockade on ships that were bringing
Mhm.
aid in, and it was the same thing. It was the
Yeah,
same deal. It's
yeah.
like, is it going to go to the people who need it, or is it going to go to Hamas? And I don't know. These are the things I don't have answers for.
No.
It's super hard to figure out,
And nobody
how to
does
do
because
it.
there are no good solutions. I think in the Atlantic, one of the experts was delineating all of the choices that Israel has in this, and the headline was, "They have no good choices."
Right. It's true. They don't. And
And
I
a
think,
lot of innocent people are going to die, and that's horrible. It's horrifying. But you can't make it that somebody terrorizes your country and there are no consequences for that.
I agree.
How do you deter it from happening again?
My question is there a way to do it in such a way? I mean, I've heard a lot about, for example, the Israeli initiative being to wipe out the tunnels, the
Yeah,
underground tunnels
yeah,
that Hamas uses to move around and
yes.
stuff like that. I mean, is there a way to do it in such a way that you can minimize the loss of civilian life, I guess. That's my question. And
And I
it's hard
suppose
because
that's
how do you
what the
distinguish?
ground thing is supposed to be when they get inside,
Right.
because you can't
I don't
just
know.
bomb those away.
Right. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I don't know how they do it, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they've gamed out scenarios and have ideas on how to do this. Let's hope that it doesn't involve eradicating people, millions of people who don't have any. They're as much the victims of Hamas as Israelis in a lot of ways, right? I mean, and if they can't go anywhere, I mean, this is the part that bothers me, is that there's nowhere for them to go.
Right. Right.
If they could go somewhere so that anybody who had a choice could leave, and those remaining are essentially saying, I choose to be with Hamas.
Yeah. But it's a lot like the situation where you live in a canyon and there's a wildfire and you can't get out.
Right.
And
I
I'm
know.
really afraid of how many people are going to be caught in the canyon.
Yeah, me too.
And of course, neither you nor I knows anything about military planning,
Right.
but just from the
Not
outside,
my area of
it
expertise
doesn't
for
look good.
sure.
It doesn't look good.
No, it
And
doesn't.
it's a tragedy all the way around.
It is. And
Um,
I have to wonder, and I know some people are going to think I'm naive, but what possessed them to do what they did on October 7th?
I think
Honestly,
this,
what were they thinking the outcome was going to be?
this, they want to cause Israel is normalizing relationships throughout the Arab world, except within the Palestinian lands and Iran.
Hmm. Okay.
And so now those deals are not those deals are on ice. That's what they
That's what
wanted.
they wanted. Okay.
That's what they and the whole Arab world is on fire.
Right.
That's what they wanted. Because they knew, predictably, Israel would fight back.
I wonder how much of this can be attributed to Russia. We have a clip
Oh.
of a guy just going off on Russia TV, on RT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like, I mean, I thought that from the beginning. Everybody said, "Oh, it was Iran." I'm like, Iran is a client of Russia, so
It's Russia. I mean,
yeah,
what better way to distract us from Ukraine?
right, exactly, and which is why it was so brilliant that Biden was able to weave Israel and Ukraine together in his speech last night.
Although I saw a lot of people criticizing him for doing that because they don't fit.
What?
And
How
yeah.
so? Well, then they didn't listen. Then
No, they
I'm
listened.
sorry.
They listened. On MSNBC, they were very critical of that after the speech.
Really,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Well, I thought they fit really well. I mean, he made the point that there's two democracies
Yeah.
in danger.
Yeah.
You may not like Israel's democracy. You may not like the government that's there, but don't deny it's a democracy. It is one. I mean, just like we're still a democracy even when we had Trump in office,
Right.
right? So it like it's ridiculous to deny that. So
No, it was a good speech. I love that Brit Hume on Fox thought it was a good speech. And
yeah, I thought that was pretty hilarious myself. And boy, is he getting shit for it too.
yeah, well, Newsmax just cut away from it because they didn't want anybody to hear the good speech.
Oh, that's hilarious. But because it was an Oval Office address, it was run on all the networks too.
Good.
So CBS,
Good.
NBC, ABC, all of those guys ran it. So
Good.
it reached,
It reached people. Good.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, and I thought it was an excellent speech, and I thought that tying the two together was absolutely the right thing to do, especially given the fact that we at least suspect Russia to be behind what's going on in Israel. And I think it's a reasonable suspicion to have.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah. So,
And then to go back to Rashida Tlaib,
oh God,
you know,
I'm done with her. I don't have any defense for her. Sorry.
no, no, because she's not looking at subsequent information. She's still
But she's still out there spouting the misinformation. I mean, that's when I was done.
right,
It's
right.
like, come on, you have staff.
Ilhan
You know
Omar at least said,
right,
this is what the US government says.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's not being a leader to spread misinformation. That's not how you lead. You
No,
lead
but
with
it's
the truth.
probably how you get reelected in a Palestinian district.
I think she'd be reelected no matter what. She doesn't
Yeah,
have to do that to get reelected. That's what bothers me about it. And
yeah,
this is like the third time that she's done something like that.
yeah.
Not that's bad, but other things where I'm just like, okay, she's young, she's passionate. Okay, I'll give her that. I'll give her that. Nope, not this one. Sorry,
Right, right.
not this one.
Yeah, I agree. I
So
agree. So,
I have no defense for it. I mean, say what you will about AOC, but she has tempered herself.
oh,
Oh,
AOC is smart.
right. Right.
You know,
She's smart and she's
and she
tempered
learned.
herself over time, right? She
Yeah,
was this firebrand, social media darling, and she's gotten a lot smarter about what she does now
yeah,
and how she does it.
yeah.
And,
And
you
she's
know,
a very effective communicator. I
yes,
mean,
she is.
you could see the talent when she came in, and
Hmm.
she's just getting better.
Right. I mean, I think she's had some good mentors. Like I think
Yeah.
probably Nancy Pelosi has done some mentoring
Well,
with
game
her.
game respects game, you know?
Exactly. Exactly that. Yeah. So, but yeah, Rashida Tlaib is wrong. Just flat
Yeah.
wrong. That's
Yeah.
all. So should we talk about some good news? Like,
Well, I wanted to, we had like 3 big stories
yes.
this week, and I'm going, okay, 20 minutes for the speaker mess,
Okay.
20 minutes for the international mess. We've got 20 minutes left to
Uh,
talk about Trump's messes, Trump's legal messes.
and
And
they are getting deeper and deeper and deeper as I would just like to send a virtual kiss to Fani Willis
Fani Willis, yes.
because she's awesome. And so where should we start? Should we start with the New York trial and build up to Fani
Now let's
Willis?
start with Fani Willis
Okay.
because it's huge. You remember when she dropped the RICO case with all those defendants and the criticisms that she got from a lot of legal analysts that we respect?
Yeah.
That it's too much, it's too broad, it's not focused enough.
Too many
This is going to,
defendants.
it's going to be hard to prosecute.
Hmm.
And then when Sidney Powell and Ken Chesbrough decided to go for the speedy trial, it's like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. She's not going to want to show her cards ahead of time. She's not going to want to do 2 trials. It's going to be a mess. And then last month, the first domino falls.
Right.
And it was one of these guys that was part of the scheme to break into the voting machines.
Right. Which was in Sidney Powell's wheelhouse. So,
Yes, yes.
yes.
And so then today was supposed to be the beginning of jury selection.
Right.
And yesterday they announced that Sidney Powell was entering a plea deal.
Hmm.
And Sidney Powell was she was there with that crazy December meeting where that White House counsel is like, we got to get her out of there, and
Right.
she was going to be Trump's choice as special counsel to investigate the stolen election. You know,
Right.
Sidney Powell pleads guilty, gets this sweetheart plea deal, and agrees that she will testify against the others.
Yep. Yeah. And so, and the deal is amazing because not only does she agree she should testify, she can't talk to them, she can't have any contact with them, and she can't speak out in public about
Right.
what she would be talking about. So
Right.
she's got a handful of cards right now
Mhm.
that it has to be major. I mean,
The
seriously.
proffer that she gave them had to
Uh-huh.
be very, very good.
Yeah. So that's how it begins. And then this morning
Even
I'm
after
getting the
the jury
coffee.
selection had started.
Right. I'm thinking, and I'm thinking to myself, well, Chesbro's not going to deal because he's kind of an arrogant guy who thinks that he was absolutely right about what he did
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. And I'm getting the coffee, and all of a sudden I hear Chesbro's got a plea deal.
The
I'm
best
like,
thing
this gift is too good.
on
And
social media, I forget who it was. It was Katie Fang, or I forget who it was, called it Kraken and Cheese.
yeah. Yeah, indeed. So, so the best part of his plea deal is that he pleads guilty to a count of conspiracy
Mm.
with
Mm,
Trump to subvert
mhm,
the election,
mm.
which is a big frickin' deal because now you have somebody who's admitted it in
Yeah,
public, in
yeah,
court, on the record, and he also agrees to testify, when called and testify
yeah.
truthfully.
So now, no trial this week
Right. And
because
Jack
they've
Smith
already
is
pled
like, thank
guilty.
you, Fani Willis, for making my case for me.
He's taking notes.
Well, I mean, because anything she says in Georgia court can be used in federal court, whether he
That's right.
pleads or not.
And Jack Smith's cases were very narrowly focused just on Trump. But
Mm.
these people were co-conspirators in his
Right.
case, unnamed co-conspirators.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I know. So it's a beautiful thing. And just to add some frosting on the top of that beautiful plea bargain cake, in New York, the judge was so fed up with Trump, and I guess he made a post on Truth Social that I actually missed. But he was so fed up with Trump that he threatened him with jail, and he
Okay.
hasn't decided what to do yet.
Here's what happened with that.
Thank
You
you.
know, okay, when the judge Ergeron made the gag order in the first place was
Uh-huh.
because Trump had put up a post on Truth Social. That was like 2 weeks ago,
Oh
whenever
yeah,
that
but he
was.
took it down right away. The
He
one about the clerk. Yeah.
Yes, he took that down right away. However, the same post was still on his campaign website.
Oh, and
And
it was sent out an email.
Ron
Right.
Filipkowski last night noticed
Hmm.
this,
Oh,
still up there, and he tweeted that out on social media, and the court saw that, and so they have taken it down now, but it had been up there all this time, and Trump's attorneys are saying it was an oversight, and the judge is like, "We don't care. The gag order is the gag order."
right. And I'll have
And
to decide what to do.
And so, as you say, as of this recording, we don't
Mhm.
know what the judge is going to do. He's talked about fining him.
Mhm.
He's talked about throwing his ass in
Jailing him.
jail, which, again, nobody knows how that's going to work with Secret Service protection. And
No.
he once, oh, that was Chutkin who said we'd have the trial earlier, but this one's already on trial. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
don't
don't know
think
how
he's
it's going to shake
whining or
out, but
throwing him in jail.
the lawyers were like, "We're really sorry. It was just an oversight. I'm sure it was just an oversight. I don't think it was on purpose." And I'm I mean, the thing is that's so delicious to me is just mentioning jail, first of all, is a big deal. And I
Mhm.
think about, like, I think I've mentioned on this podcast before that I listened to the Midas Legal AF
Yeah.
podcast. with
Yeah.
Karen Friedman Agnifilo on there. And she was just going off about this week about how he gets treated differently than everybody else. No other
Yeah.
defendant would be treated this way. He would be in jail for all the things that he's doing and everything. She really offends her that he's not getting treated like other defendants. I kind of can understand what the difference is, and why they're doing it, but I also hear her loud and clear,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, he's got gag orders in 2 courts now. And he is complaining about how it's infringing his First Amendment rights, which it's not, because these are very narrow gag orders. Just common sense.
Yep.
Do not threaten people involved in the case. Do not talk about the case, which would
Right.
be true for anybody, that they would say. And, you can still badmouth Biden. You can still, say all the things that you would do in a campaign. Just don't talk about the case. Don't threaten witnesses. Don't
Don't
rile
mess
up
with
your
staff.
supporters. Right.
Right.
So, he doesn't shut up, you know. And still, like he shows up in the court and he still goes out there on breaks and does his talking to
I
the
know.
press, and the press eats it up.
Have you ever watched that without the sound on? It's hilarious, right? It's like he's playing
I
it.
only
Yeah.
watch it without the sound on because I
Right.
cannot stand to hear his voice.
I can't
So,
either.
yeah.
So I know but it is hilarious. It's like he's playing the imaginary accordion every
So
time.
maybe maybe the judge says you can't speak to the press during recess. Maybe the judge gives him an ankle monitor, and you
I
can't,
think that would be awesome.
maybe not throw him in jail, but house confinement in Trump Tower.
Which he's not going to own at the end of this trial,
I know.
It's like, enjoy it while you have it, pal, because it's not going to be yours when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, have we discussed everything that we need to discuss about Trump?
I think so. I mean, I'm just kind of reveling in the whole idea that Jack Smith's case is made for him. He's going to be in jail, and they'll still nominate him. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Well, then let's end this early.
Okay.
Let's end this early.
All right.
And we've had 2 fun segments to talk about and 1 terrifying one, but that's better than usual.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And hopefully there'll be like more news to talk about next week that's more fun. I mean, I feel like there's some momentum building now towards more good things happening.
Yeah.
Biden's been on a roll. Republicans are stuck in the mud. Trump is going to jail. Oh, I'll sleep well at night when he's actually in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aside from the world's going to cede, things are looking
Right.
better, and things are looking better domestically.
Yes, they are. They are that.
And that's something.
It is.
We need to focus our attentions on what's going on in the world as well as here.
Yes,
So
indeed.
that is our show for the week. Join us Friday on YouTube, MOMocrats.buzzsprout.com, or on your favorite podcast service such as iTunes, Google, and Amazon Music. And be sure to check our Facebook page for updates. I'm Donna Schwartz Mills with Karoli, and we're saying goodbye for the MOMocrats. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
MOMocrats MOMochat is part of the DemCast family of podcasts.